Morgan.
Hello, Katie. And of course, shout out to our producer, Danny Brown, on that beat.
Absolutely.
Our music producer, not
music producer, yeah.
Like video producer. Yes.
Our show producer is someone else named Katie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to Scary Smart.
Katie, what are you drinking? Yeah, welcome to Scary Smart.
We say that as though this is our first time ever welcoming people.
The most important part of this kickoff. Oh yeah, we've never tried this before. Never. Tell me about it. Tell me about that Waterloo, girl.
Waterloo is on sale at all Kroger related stores right now for $2.49. Was I there at 5 a.m. the other day because my child woke up and wouldn't go back to sleep, and I said, fine, get in the car, we're going to the store. We're going to the store to pick up stuff. I'm like hosting this parenting group for newborns. It was great because my kid was like, I think those drinks are $2.49. And it was like very exciting because he's young enough that being able to like appropriately say money is like a, it's a win.
Developmental milestone. Yes.
Exactly. Absolutely. We'll call it a milestone as opposed to just like growing up. It's a true milestone. Yeah. And it's like a big discount. If you guys, groceries are expensive right now. Yeah. And these were on sale. And so this is the one tropical fruit left over from the parenting group that I hosted here. But obviously I also have my hot beverage in a Freed mug. Is it buckwheat tea that you gifted to me? It is. And then the third is my giant 64 ounces of water in a silicone cup. What about you? Tell me about your drinks.
Excellent. Well, I will match your 64 and drop you to 32.
Okay.
Glass with a silicone straw.
Excellent.
Last night I had 3 animals sleeping on and around me, and so I had to ask my partner to bring me a straw just to consume my water. And now I will not give it up. That's a forever situation.
Yeah.
Hot beverage is it's peppermint tea today. But it is the season of Seattle Market Spice tea. Let me tell you, I could not be happier. Every time I come back to Seattle, so time zone check, Michigan and Washington for Katie. Every time I come back to that area, got to get me some micro spice tea, buy like a whole pound of it. And then let's be honest, it is the evening in Michigan in the middle of the work week. And so this would be a double old-fashioned courtesy of my partner as well.
Delightful.
Cheers.
Extra old-fashioned. I'll cheers you to these. Yeah, extra old-fashioned.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it is, Morgan and I met in Seattle. And so this season, like Northwest does really do this season well. I feel like we've got good tea, like I'm not gonna mention the conglomerate that turned pumpkin spice into like a personality for a lot of white women, but that's started here. So there's a reason that happened. It's because it just like really hits when you're here. Also like there's just like apple cider donuts. I know those are also East Coast. That's like, and everyone's like, everyone claims different things, but like, I don't know. Market Spice tea is really good.
Market Spice. Oh, okay. I do not play when it comes to my Market Spice. Also, like the whole apple thing. I had this conversation at work a few days ago, and they were like, "Why is Washington so great about apples? Michigan has great apples." And I was like, "Listen, I love Michigan. I love Michigan." But I'm not even going to try to pretend like we can compete with some Washington apples because there are some bangers. Some apple bangers.
It's funny. I was just talking about this today. Like my partner popped a grape in their mouth. And like, I come from a family where like, I come from a deeply passive aggressive family, but I specifically come from a family where when you eat something, you comment on a quality that you like, or you just don't comment on it. You're like, it's food, right? But my partner does not. The first time I went to dinner with them, I'm like, wow, this is some like real reading of the chef here. You guys are all doing hard business. I'm glad they weren't at the table. But like, but in the end, afterwards, that was great. I was like, wow, you really like went in on it, but still. So my partner was just like, oh, those aren't very good. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, it's just not quite as crispy as I wanted. I was like, okay. But like, did they taste it? Like, yeah. It's just not nearly as crispy. And I was like, but you had like a look of revulsion. But the other day we went to this, like what formerly used to be UPick. At some point we'll talk about how like UPick is dead and how all these farmers are blaming Obama. But that's for another time.
Not all of them. We do have a mutual UPick friend who is not blaming Obama.
Yes, but absolutely. But like the people that are like going to UPick, I don't actually mean the people that are growing. The people that are like, are like, I've overheard. Yeah. Anyway, they're not all blaming Obama, but so like we got a bunch of these apples, like 18 different types of apples, all that had been picked, and like 8 of them types of apples I'd never even heard of. The fact that I'm from Washington, the fact that I have heard of 10 types of apples and most people haven't is like a way to indicate that I'm definitely from Washington. But so we like laid them out and did a taste test for my kid. That was dessert time. And that child has never done a taste test before. This child is not 6.5 yet. We laid it out. There were 3 slices of each. And I would ask after the first one, I was like, what did you think? Not a single answer. First slice, don't even effing talk to him. Keep your mouth shut. He's tasting. Second one, he'd start getting some noises. And then as soon as the third one is his mouth, it would be like, came out with the number. I didn't have to explain the rating system. I don't understand. Like this child, I guess, is just related to my partner. It was like 3.5. And I was like, I didn't ever tell him he could do halves. I was like, okay, 3.5. Why is that? Sweet, but not crisp enough. And I was like, what is going on? It's just like, so we had this little plate that has all the notes from it. And it was just like the level of excellence that this child like requires of an apple. It's a
Washington thing.
He's a born in Washington kid.
It's a Washington thing. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Speaking of excellence,
go on. Tell me about some excellence.
What are you watching? What are you watching and listening to these days?
Oh my God. I have been waiting to talk with you about this show.
Oh yes.
Are we recording? Not because I was worried you hadn't watched it, and I wanted to talk about it in a way where, like, when I say worried, I don't mean worried. I'm certain you haven't probably been watching it, but it's canceled, and so I'm like nervous to tell people who I know will like about it. Like, got canceled after 1 season.
Oh, okay.
So like, I want to talk about it in an advocacy way, not in a like a dirge way, because it feels like a dirge to me. But the show is called Kaos. It's on Netflix.
Oh, I've seen the clips and I have not watched it. Okay.
Right. When I saw the clips coming out, I was like, I mean, it's just like star after star after star after star. And you're like, this is obviously going to be great. But like, when you see it's obviously going to be great, and you like, unless you have a problem with Jeff Goldblum, which people do you know that there's going to be like a really fabulous trans love line, like love story, like love arc, where they're not like just a tragic sufferer? No. Is there going to be multiple? What? Like, it's so good, and it's so romantic, and it's so well made, and it's got really good music, and it's like, it's this like country blind, I'm not usually like, that's an ableist word, but it's like this country it doesn't matter where people are from, like all their accents are just mixed together. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously also like kind of violent. It's like, it's violent. And there's like, it's a really great retelling of these Greek myths where they like don't hold themselves to doing Greek stuff. They use a lot of Latin words, which really bothered my partner. It's like, that is the Latin word for the Greek. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we're going to let that go. Okay.
Yeah. Shut up and like it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm forcing you to watch it at about midnight after I've watched the whole thing earlier in the day. Like,
oh yeah,
I just need you to like it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you
That's
to like
good.
it.
What about you? What are you
Um,
watching? What are you listening to?
so um, oh shoot, what is it called? So another very important part of this equation of you and I is the ADHD that runs rampant. And one of the
Yeah.
things I'm not good at is name recall. Um, so
That
I'm watching an
try.
anime,
Okay.
and it is very violent, and yet well, okay, so I really appreciate TVMA uh
Hmm.
anime. That is like my jam. And
Okay.
anime is like not something I grew up with, not a thing I even realized existed because I grew up in a super small town. And so now that I watch it, like that's the stuff that I go for. Sakamoto Days is what it is called.
Okay.
And it is it's an anime. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There is action because people are dying all the time. It's about assassins and former assassins, and yet so sweet. And
Oh,
so, and it's also like 30-minute episodes. And so then it's just
yeah.
like, it just doesn't, it doesn't stress you out too much, which is obviously a big thing for me in that I don't like to be stressed out.
And
Music
like, what's the point of
wise,
watching a show if you're gonna get
I'm going to be
stressed out?
stressed. Yeah, no, I'm stressed
That's
out
why I'm
enough
not.
in life.
That's why I'm not watching any White Lotus. I watched the first season. I was like, this is torture.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. People, yeah, and you understand this about me. So when people are like, "Oh, have you watched X, Y, and Z?" I'm like, "Well, is it baking or fantasy?" Then nope. Sure haven't watched it. Or as I like to refer to most murder TV shows, white on white crime. I can usually
Right.
get down with some white on white crime. Um,
Absolutely.
but besides that, music wise, it is grief season, and
It
there's
is
an
grief season.
album by Patty Griffin called Flaming Red. And
Mm.
so I recently listened to that album. And then that album, now that grief season is like a real thing in my life, I would say that album
Mhm.
gets listened to like once a year. And there's one song in particular on there called Goodbye, which is
Mm.
about somebody dying. But also there's just like some really good songs on there. And Patty Griffin is kind of like rock country situation. So there's like some real good, like the first track off of there, Flaming Red, is like another song about uh like a really talented partner in bed that it just like, it just
Yeah.
good album. And this morning I was like listening to some hip hop or soul or rock or rap, or I don't even know what was playing, and I was like, man, I really do cover the gambit in terms of
Yeah.
the gamut. It's gambit, right? Because gambit is different. Two different
Yeah. I
words,
think so.
right?
No, it's gam. I think they're different words. Yeah. The gambit
Okay.
is like
Yes.
the gambit is like the play. It's like let's
Yeah,
go.
the gambit is from X-Men. Yeah. Caught myself on that one.
I wasn't gonna catch
Oh,
it. I'm normally pretty good. I was like, whatever you're talking
yeah.
about, I'm here.
These
Tell
are
me
the
more about
moments where I
Flaming Red.
wish, like, yeah. My mom is people are like, what did you do before Google? For those of you who are too young to have existed pre-Google, I'm surprised you're listening, but also I was like, I called my mom. Like my mom was my Google. My mom
Interesting.
qualified to audition for Jeopardy. Like that is who my mother is in this world.
This
Yeah.
is news to me. That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes. Yeah. And so in this moment I was like, I'm gonna have to text my mom and ask her, gambit, are those two different words? My partner also probably knows, but
But
aside the
I
point.
think that the thing is, like, I am like, one of the reasons that Chaos is so exciting, the show that I was talking about is so exciting for me is I made like a series of choices when I was younger, but one of those that aren't always great. I wouldn't undo almost any of the choices in my life. There's a couple choices that I undo, but one of them is and isn't. I just wish I'd taken them. I've taken 6 years of Latin, which, if
I
you ask, as people ask, yeah, the last several years are me and a man who probably used to be taller, but then was like shriveled like a raisin because of the amount of like spirit that had left into like where you just sit around a table and you guys just read an old Latin text, like you just read it, sight translate. The other person in that class that wasn't that wizened old man who was lovely.
Mhm.
This was like her 8th language. She was like, I thought I needed it because I also had Old Norse. And I was like, okay, this is my only
Yeah.
language. So
Right. Right. Right.
that and like
Right.
a year of
And
Spanish. So when there is a word like etymology question, I'm like right there. But I
oh
am
yeah.
an ENFP. And so I'm just like, if you're going to like, unless there's a very few things that are going to like give me like a problem, like I'll be like uncomfortable. I'm like, I need to fix that. But if it's like using the wrong esoteric word for something,
Yeah.
if you ask for my opinion, I'm like, oh, I'll pay attention to that. I'll turn on that filter now.
Yeah.
But if it's what someone else, yeah, I don't catch the. I will say, I have a very strong feeling about people misusing gantlet and gauntlet, and we'll talk about it at some point.
Gantlet and gauntlet. Yeah. Well,
Running
I
the
feel like
gantlet
this
or throwing
very
down
few
the
things.
running the gauntlet or throwing down the gantlet. That's the. Anyway, we'll talk about it another time.
Which one do you throw down? The gantlet?
The gantlet, and you run the gauntlet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, that I did not know those were two different words. Much like I hadn't really thought about the fact that gambit and gamut were two different words until that moment.
Right.
This is a
And
thing.
I just was ready to let it pass, but I have a thing about.
I have a friend who was an English major in undergrad who recently, well, the thing that he does now that's not annoying, he does this other thing where he started pronouncing every syllable in a word.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wednesday?
Yes.
February?
Or he'll like, I can't remember his exact mechanics around why he does it or how he does it. But when it happens at family dinner, I hate him. And he knows. And then other people will join in and I'll be like, I'm just walking away from this table. I'm done with all of you. But the thing that he does that is not annoying and is cool. Well, he's like trolling the whole world. He's not trolling
it's a
me
world
in particular.
Troll. Yeah.
Yes. And you know, that's now that you say that, very on brand for him. But the other part of that is that he has stopped using catchphrases until he has like Googled the origin and knows the origin of it because so many catchphrases are problematic. And so this is another one of those situations where, yeah, you got to like Google it and then you'll find out that there are multiple words involved.
Right. And that it's often like, it's an eggcorn. Mm-hmm. It's an eggcorn. I a couple of weeks ago, best friend texted and there's all these amazing words for like using the wrong word or wrong syllable, but our best friend texted like this is sort of like this is a best friend texted myself and my partner to say that their kid had said, can I have a peen full of spoonut butter? And I said, that's like the best eggcorn I've ever heard. And they were like, we've almost completely forgotten what it was because I'd named the thing that happened. But a peenful of spoonut butter is almost like now I have to call it that. A spoonful of peanut butter, a peenful of spoonut butter is.
Whew. Was it intentional or an accident?
Oh, no, definitely not.
Definitely not intentional or definitely not
intentional.
An accident? Oh, okay. Got it.
Oh, yeah. It was an accident. It was just a beautiful accident.
Yeah. I struggled with that a lot when I was younger. I can't come up with any good ones right now, but I can relate to that child. You said something a moment ago about there are very few things that kind of get your antenna up to be upset about.
Well, words. Plenty of things get specifically that type of word.
Way to kill my transition there, Katie.
I'm sorry. I will come back to this transition for a moment, but I just want to say that like the reason I'm saying it is because, the name of our show is Scary Smart. And I think one of the things that people expect of folks when they find out that they're very well educated or that they are quite smart or that they've taken 6 years of Latin, whatever it is that indicates intelligence or educatedness or whatever it is, makes people think there's like they have a very specific idea of what that is. And usually it's like very gendered, it's very racialized. And when it's like gendered and racialized to white woman, people are like, they're going to be a grammar stickler.
Yeah.
And that's not my, that's not
so spot on.
Like, it's just such a waste of time for me. Cause it's just like, I don't have, like, I'm hyper vigilant about plenty of things. I don't have time to like, did you communicate to me what I thought you were trying to communicate? Yep. That's all I care about. That's
Yep.
what's on, is like, am I understanding this person or not? Like, everything else is filtered out. If you want to ask me, like, where do you think this thing came from? And do you think does it have a problematic origin? I often have an answer.
Uh-huh.
But
Yes.
it's like my information is high, my caring is low.
Yeah.
There we go.
Anyway. Words up and playing into
Antenna.
That's an interesting observation. I've never really thought about that before, but that is so, yeah, because it's like, well, white woman equal teacher profession.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my transition was, now that I've named that there was a transition. Yeah, no. I was annoyed, and then you just came back with that curdle, and I was like, wow, well, there was an amazing educational moment that I will take, and I stand corrected. For those of you listening, I stand corrected on being annoyed.
So you don't be corrected on being annoyed. You just were annoyed, and then it transitioned, right? It transitioned to something new.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, you're allowed to have your feelings, but also I spoke too soon. I'll put that out there.
Got it. Okay.
I own the fact that I reacted in a way that I needed to just fall back for a moment. A lesson a lot of people could learn. Those people are probably not listening right now. So you know,
the whole, like, the people who do the abusing, a blanking, don't go to therapy, the people that got hurt did, sort of vibe. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep, that's the vibe I'm going for. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So you and I met in grad school, speaking of being smart. And you know, you and I have had this conversation about how we met, the things we experienced. All of it will be brought up and rehashed, and perhaps rehashed too many times over the times that we go. But we tend to really, there are a lot of terrible things happen when we were in grad school.
So many.
But also, the thing that I loved about grad school was just who you and I were in grad school. And
tell me more.
There is this one particular moment. So there, you and I have different memories of how we sort of like officially bonded.
Yes.
So I want to hear your version. I'll tell my version. But before any of that, later on in the program, there was this moment where, I mean, lots of terrible things were happening all of the time. And then you and I were just like, one day I was like, I'm reclaiming my time. And you responded with, I'm reclaiming my time. And I was like, this is why we're friends. This is because you already, and I was like, and you were like, no, I know. I already know. I'm reclaiming my time. So, and I feel like we did a lot of that, probably not enough of it in grad school. But in terms of antennas being raised, Katie, please tell our listeners who have hung with us through 20 minutes of talking about, I don't know what, how we met, how you remember us, our first interactions.
Okay. I remember our first interaction, like, I mean, I think it indicates a little bit about who we are also. Like, I have a very strong visual memory of it. The colors are important, things like that. So we had this like pre-grad school. So we should say what it is. We did a master's of public administration, right? We should say it's relevant, especially given the mess that was happening in government, in everything that was happening. It was like especially relevant, right? So we're doing a master's of public administration, and I've just moved to the city of Seattle. I've kept a full-time job. All the people in this are, you know, people who had jobs. It's like an executive program. But so like don't have a house yet, don't have a place I'm living yet, you know, just like came with a small suitcase. And I knew that our first day, this like intro day, was going to be, we're going to have our pictures taken. And so I was like, but I like didn't think about it when I was packing. So all I had was I had some of these like shoes that I really love, these like gender neutral shoes. They're bright purple. And I was like, all right. And I've got jeans, and I'm going to wear this like bright green. It was like a marching band majorette top, because it's the only thing I had that wasn't just like a travel hoodie. And everyone else showed up like fully in like business attire. And it was like pretty boring. I like some of them, but like it was pretty boring. But you were wearing bright colors also. You were wearing bright purple. You were wearing purple. And I was like, okay, there's another person of color. And then I think we were like, people were sitting down. And then when we stood up to get in line, you were the only other tall person. And I was like, okay, another tall person who I can like see over the top, like, so we could like make eye contact over people's heads. And I just remember someone said something that was like a joke, but wasn't funny at all. And I just remember making eye contact with you. And it was just this moment of like, we do not know each other, but I think we've met now. That's what they think is funny. Cool. Like that's my true first memory.
Yes.
I also remember talking over someone else's head and discovering that we had a lot in common, but like my true first memory was like, okay, one other person is like on like a fashion wavelength I can hang with. And then also, yes, they're also tall. And we've both suffered through already a bad joke that I assume is going to be part of our life for the next 19 months.
Yes.
That's my first memory. Yours?
Yes. And my first memory is talking over somebody's head, well, actually in front of somebody, because that individual was as tall as us.
That's true.
Yeah,
but his vibe is shorter. I just feel like I remember talking over. But you're absolutely right. That
yes,
I mapped the seeing over people's heads and like making eye contact with you with that. But you're right. He's absolutely the same thing.
And you know, hearing your memory of how we met makes a lot of sense. Why I probably opted to sit closer to you. Were we assigned seats? Were we assigned seats that first day? I can't remember either.
Maybe,
but
I don't know.
I looked over and saw your name tag, and it had abortion in the title of your in your like job, your job, and I was immediately like, and this is my person, and leaned over this tall, gangly, like just we love this individual.
Salt of the earth.
Record. But in that moment, this was just a very tall, gangly, nerdy looking white dude who we assumed was incredibly uncomfortable with the conversation that was happening, in which I was like, oh, you work in abortion access? I used to work for this abortion access organization, and now I do this youth development stuff. And you were like, oh, I used to do youth development. And we were just talking over this person who was like, seemed to just be leaning back farther and farther in their chair as we were having this conversation and bonding over his lap. Turns out he was probably the funniest person in the entire class. So
funny and self-aware. There are other people who were like who would have these like one-off singers, but like they weren't self-aware enough to pull it off intentionally.
No. That's why I said funniest actually over the whole. Yes, actually the funniest person there. Yes. So then I didn't feel so bad after we started to get to know him, but definitely in the moment I was like, I kind of feel bad for this dude, but oh well, don't care enough to stop.
And not centering your experience, dude, even though you're literally the center.
You are literally the center. You're literally having to experience this. Yes. You're literally experiencing being decentered despite being the center.
Being physically centered. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that there was
I think you had at the time you also had like you had other youth development work on your list also. But so I didn't know that you had also worked for, for like a reproductive justice like access thing. So that was something that you had to volunteer in order for me to like know that like it wasn't just that fashion sense and like an eyebrow raise is what we were going to have in common.
Yes. And I saw the name of your organization, and that was like, I was like, that is my person. I'm looking around this room at people, all these government officials and people working at all these different locations. And I was like, that person literally has abortion in the name of their organization. That is my person.
I mean, and it is like, but that is part of the reason that, like, I remember at the time, I mean, I no longer am in that job. At that point, I'd been in the job, I'd been in that job for only actually a couple, wow, saying this out loud is crazy. Crazy is not the word I mean, but saying I'd only been in that job for 2 years. It's wild. Yeah. It is wild. I'd only been in that job for 2 years, but prior to that, I was, one of the founders of the abortion rights campaign in Ireland. And so like abortion had always been, but like what I discovered in my, decade of activism in Ireland is like the biggest problem around abortion advocacy is the stigma around just even the word. And so like, I remember even until like, very recently I would like lose writing gigs because I would choose to put the title of the organization, in there, or I would like put my background. And so I would get like things denied me. And so I remember at the time being like, if these people can't handle that the word abortion is in here, we're gonna just that's gonna be the problem. But it ends up, as always, if you are honest and forthright about what you're doing, like you end up connecting with people more. Like the people that don't like what you do, like are less likely to be near you and potentially harm you because of that. And the people that do connect with you about that will read it and say, excellent. Thank you for saying that.
They will lean forward and say, please become my best friend of now 9 years. 9 years this month, yes?
Yes. We've been friends for 9 years this month.
Yes.
9 years.
Whew. And so it was wild to hear you say that you'd only been in that position or had only been with that organization for 2 years. What's also so wild to me is I was realizing that at that time, your organization was in a different format also. I don't know how much of this you want to talk about, but I will say like it was in a different format. And then I was like, oh, wait, it wasn't until like 4 years later that I even assisted your organization in changing formats. Yeah. Which is also just sort of okay, well, I'm gonna need to stop this conversation because suddenly I feel some type of way about the number of long periods of time. Yes. The number of people who have gone to high school and college since we have known each other. Yes. Yeah. So. Yes. Yeah. We can talk about that another time when we're not just looking back. Yeah. Yes. This is supposed to be a positive conversation. Somebody asked me wherever like, goes, your knee, we don't have to only knee injuries. Back. Somebody's like, you have knee injuries? I was like, I've had arthritis since I was 18. Like, it just is what it is. But again, a conversation for another day. So this idea of
injuries, go on aging.
Yeah, go on. Yes, and aging, high school sports, which I shudder to even say high school sports to you because the conversations we have and had and will have about it. But anyway, reclaiming my time. Reclaiming your time. Which was such a and that's when the Black community was really referring to her as Auntie Maxine, right? And it was this moment in just terribleness, right, in the world where we still had where Black folks really needed to cling to what we could cling to, and that included Auntie Maxine and her reclaiming my time. The remix into a gospel song. So and I think, yes, it's so good. And there was also like something about that moment in particular that stood out to me is the fact that that was such a Black culture moment that you as a white woman were still very aware of and excited about. And I think as I was having this moment of really leaning into regaining my time and not participating in a lot of the bullshit that we were participating in, it was another one of those moments where I was like, cool, I don't even have to explain myself to Katie. Like, dope. We don't even got to talk about it.
Unless you want to, we can use the shorthand.
Yes, we can use the shorthand. Because we experienced some wild things in grad school. So I think...
Yes, we did. I mean, it's almost impossible to be in having a I'm just going to call it a third time successful. We're doing it. We're recording, Morgan. We're recording this. We're making this podcast. It's called Scary Smartie. Yes. Welcome, everyone. Yes. I know we've already
third time's the charm, folks.
Yeah, third time successful. We're doing it.
Mm-hmm. We will have to Google later what third time the charm is, the origin story, but continue.
Yeah, please.
Continue. What were you saying? Yes.
I feel like if there's anything, I'm hopeful it's witch related and then I can handle it. Like it is. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I've reclaimed my witchiness and I've got a lot of witch related stuff. So anyway, as we're doing this, I think it's important to tell people when we started grad school, like when we actually met, we met in September, like late September, early October of 2016. Recall, if you will, what was happening then.
You're asking
the world was bad.
Yeah, so it's like you're asking the listeners to recall. You're not asking me to recall.
I'm not asking you. Please don't recall. Yeah. Don't recall. just like listen to some white noise. Trump hadn't been elected yet, but it was It was
about to
happening.
happen.
It happened during, you know, it like the results, it happened right after our first like official like class. We did this full week of like living together in a hotel, which had created a lot of problems. And then the first time we did it, like a full weekend together, he was elected on the Tuesday after that. And the stuff that happened subsequently to that happened really quickly. And that's why like the peddlers of H speech. I don't know if that word I think it probably does. That word probably gets people flagged. It like came to campus immediately. They were ready. And that's why and like you and I have talked about before about everything.
Yes. Literally.
Like,
and
can you believe
anything
can you yeah.
Oh,
can you believe this happened so fast? Did you ever expect something like this? It's like, yes, they've been ready. They've been ready because they had the power and they lost it. And in that every moment that they were losing it, they were like, how am I going to, they were like Mr. Burnsing it up. And so, yeah, I remember, but I also have like a good enough memory to say like, yeah. And I think we had this very interesting thing. We had this like weird sort of stochastic, like we had these like, not every month, sometimes twice a month, like we were like together for a weekend. And you and I would see each other on different times, but because of that, we'd have these like really intense moments. And so like whatever was specifically happening in that moment became really relevant. Like us being unsafe on certain people being unsafe on campus because Milo Yiannopoulos had come, things like that. And there was an SHO. I don't know how to not talk about things.
No, I mean, listen, I already talked about alcohol. I feel like we already demonetized.
Okay, we're good. Okay, we're good.
Yes, but there was an incident at UW's campus, which is an incident that happens multiple times a year at many different schools.
Yeah. And maybe happened earlier this year, and everyone was like, can you believe this happening? It's like, yes. None of these things are new. None of these things are surprises. And like the speed and intensity at which they're happening, I think it's the speed and intensity at which people are encountering them, especially people who are surprised by them, and especially people who maybe haven't been, who were privileged the first time around, or the 8th time around, or the 50th time around, and just didn't get exposed to that. It's not a surprise to anyone else that it's
which is like also very much like ties into fuck around and find out, right? I think the other thing that happened was like when you and I, during that time period, a lot of what we were experiencing was white folks' apathy. And that then resulted in Trump's first election. And then all these apathetic white people being surprised that there were consequences for their actions. This time around, we're experiencing white folks who wanted it to happen now realizing that it is also bad for them. And not realizing that ahead of time. Which is the thing about DEI is that it really serves everyone, but somehow that is also H speech, which I kind of love H speech. I kind of just, when you said it initially, I was like, what just happened? But now it is like H speech is kind of my jam.
Well, it's kind of fun to do it for, like sarcastically, like, oh yeah, that's some H speech, or you're upset.
Some H speech. Some H speech.
Some H speech. Yeah. So, I mean, that absolutely, like that idea of the difference really is, it's like, I do feel like, last time it was apathy and ignorance. And this time, it's the leopard's face stuff, all that. But it's specifically, it's like, honestly, the story is easier to tell, or like, the scales falling off of the eye, easier is the wrong word. The scales falling off of the eyes this time should lead to the problem that like we were super far from people even noticing in 2016, which is this idea of our humanity being bound up together. And before it was like, we just don't really know what's happening to you. And now it's like, oh, wait a minute. If I am feeling malevolent about other beings on this earth, it's going to come back for me. Like that wasn't even like, we weren't even there.
No, we were not. No,
I'm not saying it's more positive here, but it's just like, I feel like the shock that people are feeling is more like to their core this time. As opposed to the like,
Yeah. And at
Now
the
it's
time
like,
of recording this, right, we're like about to creep up on November 1st, where a lot of people are going to, like, at the point of recording, right, the likelihood that folks are not going to have their EBT benefits in a couple of days is real. And so I think that sort of, my humanity is tied to yours, which is, it's a phrase. So there's an old proverb that speaks directly to, like, if you recognize, and I can't remember what the proverb is exactly, but I remember it coming up in school, in elementary school or college. I remember it coming up at college, and just being in this room full of white folks. And granted, I was like probably not the most even-tempered person at the time when it came to white folks talking about work they had done in communities that were not their own. But I just remember that phrase of, like, well, like, somebody said, well, what are we supposed to even do if we can't do anything? And the professor was like, exactly, right? And I was just, but is that proverb, that idea of what does our, like, how is our humanity tied to each other? It's still like, how do we pull ourselves out of saviorism? And that is true of all folks, right? But if we're talking about white folks in particular, how do we pull ourselves out of white saviorism and recognize the ways in which, and I think what we're experiencing right now really is that, right? Like, if my survival, if my humanity is tied to yours, like, that is when we can work together. Don't come to help me, but when you recognize how our humanity is tied together, then we can work together. Yeah. And I think that there are ways in which folks are being confronted with that. Are they realizing it? I don't know. But I think that there is that way, those ways in which we're being confronted with that reality.
So what you're mentioning makes me think of two really fabulous creators, writers, and like a video creator that made me think of, and I'm going to pull them up and put them in the notes. But I can reference both of their. One of them is this
comments, right?
What'd you say?
By notes, you mean comments? Put them. They'll be available to everybody.
Oh yeah, no, in the notes of the, like, below the video, right? They'll be available in the notes. Yeah. Is that they're called? Yeah. Anyway, the whatever. They'll be.
You're gonna be, if you're listening to this, they're there, and you can find them now.
Exactly. So it's a really great article called by Chad Deshawn called "When Curiosity Still Centers Whiteness," and this, like, it's really fabulous. It's like reflecting on the conversation that happened several weeks ago. Anyway, it's this idea of, like, it really sort of focuses on the way that, like, just asking questions, people have gone beyond this, like, I'm just asking questions, but this idea is like, tell me more about your experience. It feels like that class you were in of, like, what some of those people did. If they're like, we can't even do anything, they turned it into curiosity. It was like, well, tell me what to do then, But when it stops with curiosity, like, then you're just like, you've gathered that information and then move on and do nothing to help repair. That is just like, oh, so I just bled a little for you, and then you've got the information, and now you move on. That's actually not enough. That's not enough. And then the other creator I need to find, I've just stumbled upon her and I really loved her stuff. She focuses on helping specifically women of color, like, move out of countries or places that are not, she does a lot of stuff, but she was talking about, like, people saying, like, we need to talk about, there's already this question of people that, like, are waking up from having hated other people and being like, well, like, want to be forgiven, like, immediately. And she just talks through in this really quick way of, like, okay, so people are like, what does it take to, like, let you back into the full, like, what is it going to take for you guys to forgive us? And, like, had this really great analogy of this, like, okay, you guys are sharing a house. What would it take for you to trust this person who was willing to burn the house down? And just talk about that. It's like, that you want to live with them again? They want to live with you again? Like, what would it take for you to say yes to sharing a home with them again? And it's, she does it, like, the metaphor really well. We'll put it in the notes or whatever, they'll be there. but those are two things that feel really relevant to that question of like you as a person in that class, like somehow being the only person that's not just like, well, I guess we did our best. And like thinking through now, and it's taken, you know, more than a decade of living this over and over again for people to be like, have the answer or have answers and, or have like reflections that are like, yeah, it's just it's not good enough to be a white savior. And it's not good enough to, especially because white savior is actually very powerless, right? Like you don't, if you were actually able to move mountains with your power and your saviorhood, you would be able to make yourself less of a white savior, and you're not able to do that. So how do you think you're going to fix those folks if you can't even stop? So
one of the most interesting things that happened in our program is that, so you and I just, you know, had no qualms being very clear about who we were, what we expected, what we believed.
Right.
And our classmates were often tired of us, which is, you know, what happens.
When we came up with the name for the show.
Yes. People are just tired of us. But
and they're like afraid of us.
Yes, absolutely. But
stressed out.
There were two particular moments that happened for me. One was we had somebody, we were talking about something related to DEI, and I answered the question very clearly. And you could feel the whole tone of the class shift when they realized I actually knew what the hell I was talking about. There was this moment where they were like, oh, this isn't just a Black woman like talking on and on. Like Morgan actually knows what she's talking about. And like,
as though those things had to be like mutually exclusive, but go on.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. But then there was another situation in which it was just like a teacher did a really terrible job of handling a race-related conversation over the course of several days. And what was most, and we did not sing I'm Reclaiming My Time that day because I just had to walk out of class. And I did. I just left.
The reclaiming was walking out.
Yes. And what I really appreciated in that moment. So I think the other thing that's important to note about that class is that I was one of 3 Black people in that class and the only Black woman also in that class. And the race-related topic was specific to Black Lives Matter in the conversation.
And you were the only, and to also add to that, the other 2 are in law enforcement.
Yes.
The other 2 Black people were in law enforcement or military. So like, it's like, there's this extra layer of, you know.
And what ended up happening is eventually I just walked out of the class, and I'm sure at some point in time we'll tell the full story. But the class wanted to talk about it. And that's what I found what I most appreciated. It was just the first time that the class was like, no, we want to talk about race and like what it means in policy and what it means in public advocacy or public administration. Like we want to talk about it. And the professor couldn't take us there. And like you and I were both like
wasn't capable.
No, was not capable at all whatsoever. And in fact caused harm, which is why I left. And then I had multiple classmates reaching out to me to ask if I was okay. Classmates were asking you if I was okay because the class knew that you would know. But I think that was one of those moments where you and I were obviously patting ourselves on the back for having successfully done this, right? Because like we took a lot of credit for that moment. And I don't think we were wrong for taking a lot of credit.
Like in between, but between us, we weren't like, they weren't scared of us because we were like, but together, that was like, the credit was here between you and me.
You and I shared mutual credit for bringing the class into a moment in which they were willing to talk about this hard topic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we weren't like doing it to them. Like we weren't telling them that. We weren't saying like,
No, I was trying to figure out what you're trying to clarify there. No, we did not. We
weren't like, that. Check us
if
out.
If any of our classmates have bothered to listen to this, which they probably haven't, no, we have never actually said this to any of them. But you and I have said it to each other multiple times. We were like, after that class, as much as that class caused harm, you and I are both like, look at what we did with these folks. Look where we brought them. Good on us.
I guess that's what happens when you just keep interrupting problematic interactions. Then sometimes It can, like, sometimes you don't just get punished for it. You also, sometimes you don't just get harmed, or punished. You also, something happens, something gets shakes loose a little bit.
And I think the other part of that disruption, right, that folks don't often understand, and I think that was the other thing, is like they watched the problematic thing cause harm.
Yeah.
And when we had first started that class, that is not a thing that most of them could have ever observed or recognized or acknowledged had happened. And so I think what felt like annoying of us being so consistent and pointing out problematic things.
And threatening. I just want to say that they weren't just annoyed at us, threatening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and some of our classmates did feel threatened by us because they were actively causing harm and not great people. And so, you know, if you feel threatened by me, like, it's because you are terrible. Not generally, but in our classroom setting, yes, that is accurate.
I mean, we're talking specifically about people that, anyway, like breaking, like DV. Let's just say, like, DV. Like, if you feel threatened by us, because of the DV that you're doing and the the stalking you're doing. If you feel threatened because we see you, if you feel threatened by us seeing you, you're probably a bad person. I think that's actually a way. Like, it doesn't mean general. If you feel seen by us and that's bad, might be time to be seen by yourself. But go on.
Yes, and I think the other part of what happens in that, right, is when people observe the harm being caused, right, we aren't being disruptive for the hell of it.
Right.
We're being disruptive because we don't want to experience harm and you're causing harm. And we're just like, you and I have been put forward in all sorts of situations our entire lives to be the ones to disrupt or say the thing other folks don't want to hear. And then, yes, we get punished for it or shunned or whatever it may be. And so what's important about that moment was that whether or not they have ever realized it, they had spent all this time finding us being really annoying, but it was like, finally, they could see the harm caused by ignorance. And the work that we were doing, the things that we were saying, I don't even want to call it work that we were doing. Like we were showing up to class to learn. And here we are, like having to do all of this work in those spaces. Yeah. So again, maybe we weren't the best at reclaiming our time always.
No, actually, we were pretty bad at it. We were terrible. When it comes down to it, we were like horrible at reclaiming our time, and we were horrible at not taking care, and we were horrible at like we were bad at it, but we were trying. And because we were like, we were trying. And I think the crucial thing, and what brings us together, what I feel like brought us together, and what brings us together to do this is that like we weren't alone in doing it, and it is a very lonely place to have to be reclaiming your time and defending yourself and also teaching people, and while also caring for them because they're like these little fragile things that can barely hear what you're saying, and you need to be doing it in a way that's like a little less scary so they can actually hear you. Like we were doing all of that labor, but not alone, whereas I was used to doing it alone,
as was
prior to this. And you were too.
And you and I were just like tag teaming the administration, tag teaming our classmates, tag teaming our professors. Everybody got it. Because everybody deserved it, for clarity.
This isn't what happened. This isn't what happened at all. But like, I do have a view. Like, what I mean, this, of course, this is, as I say out loud what I'm about to say, you're gonna be like, oh, no one's gonna think that actually happened. But it does feel sometimes like it's like you and me, like clotheslining people together. You know what I mean? I've never actually been in a physical. I mean, that's not true. I played basketball. I was a pretty intense. I've been an intense sports player. You already mentioned that we talked about it, but like I've never been in like. Okay, I'm saying things that aren't true, but I've never clotheslined anyone. However, like a double clothesline between you and me does feel sometimes like emotionally what it might happen to people. That's what it felt like was about to happen to them.
Yeah, I think the
clothesline was truth. You know.
Yes. People did feel much like the lasso of truth. We were the clothesline of truth. But we were also the clothesline of accountability. I think the thing is, when you say that, I'm like, were we clotheslining so much as offensive linemen? Like, I feel like we are basically like, if you come for, like, do not come for me unless I send for you, is more of who we were. And so when people tried to come for us, we just tackled them.
I love that you picked like because I boxing or like like fake wrestling, football also like a thing that I know a lot about because of growing up in America in the 80s and 90s. But like when we all like knew what CTs were like in our souls, but didn't like understand what was actually happening. And so like it is really, I mean, but that is absolutely true. That sense of like there's a specific type of role that happens for people that are that like sort of role of like being like frontline. The offensive line is that the sort of like frontline and needing to like hit people before they hit you, but also like that sense of just like, yeah, we're here, and that, but like specifically that idea of a line is really I think that's why the clothesline thing makes sense to me, because one of the experiences when we were trying to like describe why we were going to do a show, one of the experiences that we talked about is that sense, and the one that I have like a very like felt like lived like bodily sensory memory of is that feeling of like being in the middle of harm being done, being in the middle of someone saying something horrible or trying to push through a thing where only people that have PhDs are going to be able to comment on something at this workplace, something just like when in reality, those people aren't going to be doing the work that this is, whatever problematic thing is happening. That feeling of sitting in a group or sitting in a line and like looking down and being like, no, you guys going to do it? Nope. I guess it's me again. Yeah. And it's sort of like being in the line and being like, you want it? Nope.
Yeah.
Okay. And having to step forward.
Yes.
Feels like,
yes. And I think that's like, do you want it? I feel like there was a lot of, there was a lot of tag team and kind of like and I think you and I also because we spent so much time together outside of class, once we realized that we were going to be friends forever, we also knew where the other was emotionally. And I think we were also really learning each other's triggers in faster ways than we may in other situations. And so I think there was also this element of like, we also kind of knew we didn't even necessarily need to look down the line at each other, even though we just you and me were the line. We had this sense of like, I think that that's the other part, is that we also knew when harm was being caused to the other person. One of the things that my late sister would say is, if people can hate for no reason, then I can love for no reason. And the reality is that love and care is so much harder than hate. Like people like to think that love is like such this ooey gooey like thing. No. It is so much harder to love and lead with kindness than it ever is to just hate or shut out or assume that those people don't know what they're talking about. And it is that resolution to love that also always makes us the front line.
Yeah. And it also, and like that idea of like burning love, it makes what you're saying it that way, that choice and that beautiful thing that your sister said more than once, is to me this very like, it's part of an explanation for, and I think it brings us to like why we're making this show, because there are plenty of people like us out there who either don't have, like maybe they have a group, great, let's connect, but also maybe you have been alone in that and being like in that feeling. And so the thing that I used to try to explain to people who would say, but you're so good at that, I want you to be in charge of it because you're so good at it, or because you did it before, but you're the only one who can figure out how to say it. You're the only one who can stay calm during it. You're the only one who can hold it. It's like, sure. Or they'll be like, you're really good at this, because you're good at it. Like the sort of like condescending patriarchal idea. It's like, well, I want you to do it because you're good at it. Like you're really good at taking the garbage out. So like, if you could keep doing that, that'd be great. Is that it's like, I've gotten very good at holding fire in my hands. And it still burns me.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. I will hold it. I will hold it, and I've gotten good at it, but I'm still choosing to be burned to do that. Like, it's still choosing to burn. And so that idea of like, once you realize that you're going to live this way, there's plenty of people, as I'm sure many of our listeners that are ready to be like, great. Oh, so your job is to take care of us. Awesome. And they're ready to let you do that. And I mean, the difference between where you and I were more than a year ago that we tried to first start doing a podcast, tried to do a show, the difference, the different place I am is big, because at that time I was much closer to having done like end of life care for more than one person and in years in a row. And I've done a lot more work analyzing like why am I chose both of those things. I chose to help in both of those situations. They were horrible situations where at the time I was aware that I was choosing it, but I was also like, how much choice do I have? But in retrospect, I really chose it and I really went toward it.
Yeah.
But the difference is that now I'm like really ready to go toward it while like, I guess I don't actually know football well enough to like, but I'm also like, I'm going toward it. And then I'm also like, but not for you and not for you. I'm like, I feel like I'm like old timey football, like, like running. It's like, not you. I'll take this ball.
Your Heisman Trophy. You're doing the Heisman Trophy pose. Yes.
I think that's a linebacker, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's the
Heisman. No, that's a receiver.
It's a receiver. Wait, but what's the thing where anyway, like someone who can like take hits but is also holding the ball? Isn't that a linebacker?
Oh shoot, I know this because it's Barry Sanders, right? We're Barry
Sanders. Yeah, exactly.
Running back.
Running back.
That's
exactly,
the phrase we're looking for. Yes.
Yeah, running back. Yeah.
In my household, there is a strong allegiance to the University of Michigan football team. And as I always like to say, one of us went to the University of Michigan. The other one is a strong University of Michigan football fan. They are not the same person. And let me tell you, I could not come up with linebacker, so I will let you do the math on that.
And speaking of letting us do the math, we're like at about an hour, so we're probably ready to finish. If anyone who's stuck around with us, we're really grateful. But also, I'm assuming that most of the football fans have maybe dropped off. I'm not saying anything about you football fans. You may be great. Just don't let your sons play football. Maybe your daughters, whatever. Your non-binary kids. Football is bad for your brain.
It is. Okay, but let's not, because we got a whole other conversation about high school sports that we need to not get into right now.
We need to not get into it. I just right now my child is doesn't want to play any sports, but if a football game's on TV, he's like in.
Well, it's so cool to watch. Doesn't mean you want to play. I get sucked into a baseball game, but it doesn't mean that I want to play baseball.
True.
Here's the thing I was going to say, though. I think similarly, right, having participated at end of life care for several folks myself, kind of a few years prior to you, boundaries, like the boundaries I have learned around that and the choices that I will make of who and what I will invest my time and energy in. And then the things that I just don't have time for, and I'm not afraid to say I don't have time for, right? The reclaiming my time in the sense of I'll just be like, why are we having this conversation? Why do we care about this person's opinion? This person is not on my reporting line. Why do I care? Right? I think those are things that we are just a lot stronger in that process of having been in the process of supporting folks through end of life care. And the folks that we lost and how that impacted us.
Yeah. And the people that then we but then how do you, and I think the place where I've actually exorcised some of the oldest child duty to care for all, and exercised, it's not comfortable every time I'm doing this, exercised my boundary setting. So I've always been working on that prior to the end of life care stuff. There's a lot of incursions from a passive aggressive family. But I've exercised even more the reclaiming my time, and also just the acknowledgement that my energy, the energy that I am spending is also reclaimable. Not actually, I've decided that I don't actually still need to listen to this. I don't actually still need to hold this for you. And this isn't a space that I'm willing to hold anymore. And so what I am excited about for our show is being like, there'll be times where we're saying, actually, we started talking about the part we don't really need to care. We don't really care about that part. So we're reclaiming our time, reclaiming our energy.
Yeah.
How is this thing that's happening? How is this thing that's talked about? How is this comment like impacting or not impacting the other scary smarties out there?
Mm-hmm.
It's not? Okay, great. I'm out. We can be done. Yeah. We can move on.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, as always, lovely chatting with you, Katie.
And you. So we have the message in the future, Morgan, we're probably going to have, this was our, like, how did we meet? What's the show going to be about?
Yeah.
We're going to probably have topics that will be more than just an intro. We will always be here to tell you about our drinks, what we're drinking. Maybe seasonal, we'll have discussions about media, pop culture criticism as it becomes relevant, but we'll have other topics. But until then, we ask that you stay scary
and stay smart. Bye.